I've used many airbrush compressors over the years, and to be honest, they were all great. As long as they don't leak and have a consistent airflow, I'm happy. But with that said, the only complaint that I have, and I'm sure you'll agree, is the noise level that they operate at. I'm not saying that the noise level is too bad, you definitely get used to it, but there are actually a few brands that make super silent compressors, and the one that I always had my eye on was a brand called Silentaire. Now, I've always wanted a Silentaire compressor, so about a month ago, I decided to buy one. A lot of airbrush compressor brands are marketed as quiet, which is a relative term, but Silentaire states on their website that their compressors, and I quote, are virtually noiseless. So I checked out Silentaire's website and noticed that they have this noise chart on the bottom right side of the screen. They list a few different compressors on here, and since the only reason that I'm buying one of these is for its noise level or lack of noise, I decided to check out their line of super silent compressors. You can see from this chart that they're around 30 decibels, which is even quieter than a Whisper or a household fridge. And the model that I decided to go with is this one right here, the Super Silent DR150. It took about 2 weeks to get here, and as soon as I got it, I set it up right away. After I took it out of the box, what really surprised me about it was the weight. It's very, very heavy and extremely well built. From this brochure of the DR150 that I found on Silentaire's website, it says that it weighs 42 pounds, but to be honest, it feels a lot heavier than that. It's not like I weighed it or anything like that. I'm going to take their word on this one. All I can say is that it's very solid and seems very well built. And if you're interested, these compressors are manufactured in Italy. Obviously, the main reason that I went with this compressor is because on their website it says that it's one of the quietest ones that they make. But besides that, this one has a 1-gallon tank, which is very important to me. I like a tank on all my compressors. I just feel like it helps a lot more with giving you a steady airflow. Another reason that I like a tank on my compressor is that it doesn't need to be constantly running while you're spraying air, and this just means that the compressor is working less and not getting as hot. And another added bonus about a tank is that it kind of helps like an extra moisture trap. It just helps collect some of the moisture, which is just a normal byproduct of compressing air. At the front of this compressor is the regulator with a moisture trap connected to it. And just like all regulators, you can adjust the air pressure that you're spraying it by rotating this knob. Underneath the regulator at the bottom of the tank, there's a small screw. This is used to drain moisture from the tank. If you live in a very humid climate where the tank is going to build up a lot of moisture, it's usually best to do this at the end of the day or every 2 days just to maintain the life of the tank so that rust doesn't start building up in it. But in Silentaire's manual, they recommend doing this once every week. The other gauge on the front of this unit shows the pressure inside the tank. As I said, the compressor is very well built, but my only complaint is that these gauges seem kind of cheap to me. I kind of wish that they added some nicer ones onto this compressor, but it's not a big deal. They still work just fine. They seem to be accurate, but maybe in the future I'll swap these out for some nicer ones. The compressor comes housed in this very nice metal casing, and at the top of it, there's a large handle which you use to lift it and move it around. This metal housing also has these small cutouts or vents along the edges. The bottom of this unit also has 4 large rubber feet for the compressor to sit on. If anyone's interested, I decided to measure the dimensions just to show you what size this is. You can see that the length of it is about 17.5 inches. The width of it is 8 inches, and the height of the metal housing is 14.5 inches. The handle adds another 2.5 inches, so that makes the total height of this unit 16 inches. And if you're interested, it has this sticker on the side which shows a few things: the voltage, the RPM, and the CFM at 0 and 113 PSI. I bought this compressor only to use with my airbrushes, so this CFM is perfectly adequate for what I need. Unlike most small airbrush compressors these days, this Silentaire needs oil to operate. It's very, very important not to run the compressor until the oil is added. Obviously, the unit is not shipped with the oil inside it, so when you buy it, it comes with this 24-ounce bottle of synthetic oil. You get this very ominous looking paper slip in the packaging that tells you to add the oil and a picture of where it's supposed to go. Unfortunately, this paper doesn't really match my compressor. It shows a hole on the side of the housing where you add the oil, but my unit doesn't have this hole. The instructions also don't tell you exactly how much oil to add. It just says to fill it up to where you see that the gauge shows that it's half full. So unfortunately, the instructions that come with this compressor don't go into that much detail. To add the oil, here's what I did. I'm not recommending anyone else should do this. this is just what worked for me. The housing has these 4 bolts on the inside, and this holds the top part of the case with the handle on it. Since I couldn't fit my hand in to reach the oil inlet, I decided to take off this top cover so I have easy access to it. These 4 bolts were 8mm, so I used a 1/4-inch ratchet. Then I just worked my way around each one of these bolts and unscrewed them. Very easy to do, it only took a few minutes, and you can see that once these are out, the top lifts right off the bottom. Once this was off, it was just so much easier to handle. I had easy access to everything. On the left side of the compressor, this little inlet here is where you add the oil. I added this oil in off camera when I got the compressor, and you can see from this 24-ounce bottle, this is how much I used to fill it up. On the back of the unit, there's a small glass gauge, and in the instructions, it said to fill this up to the halfway point, which is where I have it here. Over the last month, I've been using this compressor quite a bit, so I check the gauge every once in a while, and it seemed to stay consistent. And it's very important to read this gauge on a flat surface when the compressor is not in use. If you see it start to dip, you have some extra oil in this bottle, so you could top it off if needed. Again, I've only been using this compressor for about a month so far, and it stayed consistent, but the instructions do say that the oil should be replaced every 12 months or 1 year. And before I put the case back on, I just want to show you on the back here, this is the air intake. When it's shipped, there's a small cap on this, so according to the instructions, all you want to do is take that off and add on this small intake filter, which comes inside the packaging. Then I just put the cover back on and screwed in those 4 bolts. And one thing I want to point out is that when you buy this, it does come with a small rubber tube that you're supposed to use to add the oil in, but my hands were just too large to fit into this metal housing. I couldn't get it to fit on that oil inlet. And I just want to point out that the instructions did not say to remove the top cover, but that's what I did. I added some Teflon tape, some PTFE tape to the threading, and connected my Iwata air hose. And then I just used a wrench to snug it in place, not to tighten down. So once you plug it in, there's a switch on top here to turn the compressor on. I'm speeding this up so you don't have to watch me fill the tank, but it takes about 2 minutes to go from empty to full. And just like most modern compressors, this Silentaire operates completely automatically. So I connected my airbrush, this is an Iwata Micron, and I set the regulator to spray at 30 psi. I wanted to see here how long I'm able to spray air until the tank depletes enough to where the compressor kicks on again. So spraying at this air pressure of 30 psi, which is right around 2 bar, I was able to spray for 2 minutes until the compressor turned on again. And this is the way that it's set up from the factory. I was very happy to see this because in the manual, it says that you're supposed to leave it on at max for 15 minutes and then have it off for 15 minutes so it has time to cool down. The compressor only kicks on after 2 minutes of spraying, so I can paint for a very long time without worrying about the compressor overheating. So let's get to the main reason that I bought this Silentaire compressor, which is its noise level. I'll be comparing the noise level of the Silentaire against 3 other compressors commonly used in airbrush painting. For this recording, I'm going to be using my microphone, which I use for all of these videos. That's an Electro Voice RE20. This microphone is a cardioid dynamic, and I'm setting it about 3 feet away from each one of the compressors. This mic is going into my Focusrite Scarlett. The gain is set around 75%, and I'm recording this into Fairlight, which is part of DaVinci Resolve Studio. 0 is where the microphone clips, and to give you a baseline to compare the noise levels, I'm spraying the airbrush at 30 psi here. For this measurement, the compressor is turned off and the sound of just the air coming out of the airbrush is around -40. So as you can see here, this compressor is incredibly quiet. The sound of an airbrush just spraying air at 30 psi is actually louder than the sound of this compressor. So I was so impressed with this. I never had a compressor that was this quiet. I kind of wish that I bought this one years and years ago. I'll play these compressor audio clips again here, just so you could hear them one more time, starting from the quietest to the loudest. So I could not be happier with this purchase. It's only been a month, but so far it's my favorite compressor that I've ever owned. Regarding longevity, that's something that we'll just have to wait and see. I have very high hopes for this. I paint a lot pretty much every day, so hopefully years down the road, this one is still going. So this compressor is so quiet that it's almost noiseless. It has an outstanding build to it, so you might be wondering what the catch is, and that of course is the price. This one's very expensive. I paid around $700 US for this compressor, and so far it's the most expensive one that I've ever owned. There are plenty of really good and reliable airbrush compressors that you can get for well under $200 US. Like this brand California Air, they make some fantastic compressors at very good prices. So is this Silentaire compressor worth the high price tag? That's really up to you to decide, but all I could say is that I'm very happy with this purchase. So if your compressor noise is getting to you and you're looking for something super quiet, Silentaire is definitely a brand you need to check out. That's where I'm going to wrap this one up. If you're in the market for one of these compressors, I do hope that this video is helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back here next week so we can continue some painting. I want to say thank you so much to the kind and generous support of the current channel members that you see scrolling up on the screen right now. I'd also like to welcome the 3 newest members, Christine, Ryland, and Sandra. Thank you all so much for joining and welcome to the channel. I'll see you guys back here next Friday.